Okay, it's time for Wilderness Medicine Wednesday. Let's go. Okay, everyone, welcome back. It is Wilderness Medicine Wednesday, this time coming from my office, which is still a work in progress, but I swear I really am working on all these things. Things take time. Life gets in the way. Today, I want to talk about gear that should be in your first aid kit. Simple things, for the most part, simple things that you should spend a little bit more time on in comparison to some things that that come in your first aid kit but may not be great. So these are things that I add to first aid kits. These are not going in little tiny like day hike first aid kit. These are going in big like multi-day first aid kit. And the first thing I want to talk about is a good pair of tweezers. Tweezers are super important. They're great for like getting out a tick, getting out a splinter, something like that. I get my tweezers from tweezerman.com. You have to dig a little bit on their website to find tweezers. They do a lot of like beauty aid products, but you want a fine point and a little bit long of a reach. Just works really well. I'm talking really fine. A lot of the tweezers that come in first aid kits aren't bad, but like I've seen like plastic ones that are just useless. These are like 20 bucks, surprisingly expensive for a pair of tweezers. Okay, next. Frequently in first aid kits, you will get a pair of trauma shears that look like this. These are actually not bad. They will cut things pretty well, but they are not nearly as good as these. These are the best trauma shears on the market. They are all black, so they look cool. They are titanium. I would love to provide a link to these exact trauma shears, except I can't find them online. However, if you Google black titanium trauma shears, you'll find something similar. These are a bit bigger, which gives you more leverage for when you're cutting something. Think like an impaled stick. You might want to cut that instead of removing it from someone. So a bit more leverage in the cut. They will cut anything. These, the best trauma shears you can buy, are also about like 15 bucks. Totally worth it. And I've got like 3 or 4 pairs of these. So highly, highly recommend like a great pair of trauma shears. Don't get suckered into the Leatherman folding multi-tool trauma shears. Those are like $75. And I'm sure the trauma shears are good, but they're heavy and they have a lot of things you don't need. These work way better in a first aid kit. Next, you all have headlamps. You all have super fancy lights. This is not a super fancy light, but this is the light that I keep in my first aid kit, and it's good for a bunch of things. First off, it's metal, so it's pretty indestructible. It is an old mini mag light, which is the AA variant of mag light. It uses a regular bulb, and it's got a spare in the back. I don't think I've replaced it in a million years. This is actually the mag light that I used when I worked on an ambulance. And the reason that I like it is it's maybe 40 lumens, which sounds ridiculous in today's day and age. But if you're working with a patient in the dark and you turn on like a 400 lumen headlamp, it's blinding. It's way too bright. This you can work around a patient. You can also use it to check pupil area response. If you're a wilderness first responder or above, you learn pupil area response. And so in that sense, it's a really, really good thing. This lives in my first aid kit with my BP cuff. I don't have a BP cuff here. I think BP cuffs are good if you learn how to use them, again, like taking a wilderness first responder course, but I am not including a BP cuff on the list today. There are other things I'm not including, like a SAM splint I think is super good, but you may or may not like it. I like SAM splints. I think they work really well, but I'm not including it on today's sort of list. The next thing, however, this is the biggest investment of all of these things. This is the Littmann lightweight stethoscope. Actually, I believe it's the lightweight too. This is about 65 bucks. I think this is an absolutely wonderful thing. Do not buy a $12 stethoscope. Buy a Littmann. Littmann, there's like one name in stethoscopes and it's Littmann, and you can spend like $1,000 on a Littmann stethoscope. This is like 65 bucks. And it's super important because you can learn lung sounds really easily. There's all sorts of resources online to learn lung sounds. I didn't have this stethoscope when I was on the inside passage when I got the flu, and I was wondering if I had the flu or if I actually had pneumonia. And I could have told in 15 seconds if I had a stethoscope, but I didn't bring a stethoscope, to save weight. But we had 12 pounds of cheese per person, but to save weight. So I paddled the last sort of 80 miles of that trip wondering if I had pneumonia. So learn how to use a stethoscope, super useful, and you look super important wearing a stethoscope around your neck. There was actually a study a million years ago that said that, do you trust a doctor wearing a white lab coat? Do you trust a doctor wearing scrubs? Do you trust a doctor wearing regular street clothes with a stethoscope around their neck? And more people trust the person wearing just the stethoscope around their neck and street clothes. So there's that. Okay, one more thing that I think is a good addition to your first aid kit. Again, these are for your big first aid kit, not like your multi-day, not your little one. This is a pulse oximeter, and I don't want it for the oxygen sensor part. So what this is doing is it's reading through my fingernail the amount of oxygen in my blood and blood. I'm at 98%, which is pretty good. That's about where you should be, 98, 99%. But what I don't really want that information. Maybe if I was at altitude or something like that, I would want that. But really, what I want it for is the pulse information. I'm gonna do a manual pulse the first time I'm with a patient, and then I'm gonna throw this on so that I can sort of see what's going on without having to stop to take a pulse. These used to be really expensive. Now they're relatively inexpensive. This one is being held together with a piece of medical tape, and I've been holding it together with a piece of medical tape for like 5 years. So it's just gonna keep going. So I think that's a really good thing to throw in your big kit. All of these will be made better, more usable, more helpful if you take a wilderness first responder course or even a wilderness first aid course. So I think that's a good option for you. If there are Wilderness Medicine Wednesday topics you want to see, put it in the comments down below. I'm running out of topics, man. And the Wilderness Medicine Wednesday group is a small group, but they're really into it. So if there's something you want to see, let me know. Okay, that's it. Do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. I'll see you outside.